Visionaries. Horn of unicorn, claw of dragon. The Spectral Knights were relaxing in their fortress. Leoric was deep in conversation with Fletchin, one of the more beautiful citizens of New Valaric, while the others looked on, hardly able to control their amusement. "Our leader seems to have made a conquest," observed Cryotek. "Don't mock others in affairs of the heart, Cryotek," Galadriel reprimanded him playfully. "He's not the only one to conquer, or be conquered." "True enough," laughed Cryotek. Then suddenly his expression changed, and he clutched his throat. He choked, gave a strangled cry, and fell to the floor. The others gathered round him in alarm. Leoric and Ektar examined their friend. He was gasping for breath, and his face was deathly pale. Fletchin, who had some skill with herbs, mixed a potion, but it did no good. It seemed that there was nothing they could do to help him. "We need the aid of a wizard. Go and fetch Merklin," ordered Leoric. "We'll go at once," chorused Ektar and Ferrell. They rushed towards the capture chariot. Ferrell took a few steps, then staggered to a halt, holding his head. He slowly crumpled to the ground. Galadriel rushed to his side. "He feels so hot and dry. Can't you do anything for—" Her voice tailed off. Then she, too, collapsed and fell to the ground. "Stay back, Leoric," warned Fletchin. "Whatever this is, it's spreading fast. You may catch it if you go too close." "This smacks of witchery," cried Leoric, holding up his power staff. "I'll call upon the power of wisdom. Whispered secrets of a shattered age, I summon you. Renew this sage." To his horror, nothing happened. He realized that he had lost his power. Fletchin rushed to his side. "This must be some kind of plague which affects only users of magic," she said. "I am not touched, and nor are the servants." "If you are right, we must act quickly," said Leoric. "Witterquick and Arzon are due back soon. We mustn't let them enter New Valaric, or they may catch this plague too." Witterquick and Arzon were returning from a long day's hunting. Witterquick was in a happy mood, having enjoyed the thrill of the chase. Arzon was feeling more serious. He regretted the need to kill defenseless creatures, even if it was for food. The two knights were shocked to find the gates of New Valaric shut in their faces. They looked up and saw Leoric on the walls. "Sorry for my rudeness, old friends, but you can't come any further," he shouted. "There is a plague here. It is affecting all of New Valaric's magic users. Cryotek, Galadriel, and Ferrell have already fallen. I think Ektar and I are infected as well." "How can we help?" called Arzon. "Go to Iron Mountain. Seek Merklin's help," Leoric suggested. "We're on our way," shouted Arzon. When they reached Merklin's sanctuary on top of Iron Mountain, they were amazed to find Sindar and Lexor there shouting at the wizard. "I don't know what your game is, Merklin," complained Lexor, "but the Darkling Lords have had enough. Darkstorm himself is deathly ill, and Mordred crashed the Skyclaw when his magic failed. Call off your spell, or you'll pay dearly." "Is Lexor insane?" gasped Arzon. "Merklin will vaporize him." "Not if we get him first," shouted Witterquick, leaping towards the two Darkling Lords. "Stop!" cried Merklin. "This is no time for fighting. A deadly plague which affects all users of magic is sweeping the land. We are all in danger." The lords and the knights drew apart, looking slightly ashamed. "Can the plague be cured, Merklin?" asked Witterquick. "The only cure is a magical spell," replied Merklin. "But I need two special ingredients, a unicorn's horn and a dragon's claw. You four must find them for me." "Us? Go with the Spectral Knights?" gasped Lexor in astonishment. "After a dragon? Forget it." "I saw this plague coming," Merklin shouted angrily at him. "I sent the Darkling Lords on a quest for the horn and the claw a month ago. They achieved nothing. Now you have no choice. You must go, or you will lose your powers and then die. Your only chance is to—" Fetch the dragon's claw and the unicorn's horn, finished Lexor sourly. Every second you remain here arguing, you waste precious time, snapped Merklin. Now go. The Spectral Knights and the Darkling Lords agreed to split into 2 teams. Lexor and Sindar chose what seemed the easier task, to find the unicorn's horn. Arzon and Witterquick reluctantly set out to find the dragon's claw. As Lexor and Sindar sailed towards the island of the unicorns in their tiny boat, they had no idea that they were being watched. Several wood nymphs, the protectors of the unicorns, had seen them approaching. Fearing that the Darkling Lords were intending to hunt the unicorns, the nymphs prepared to defend their magical animals. They slipped into the water and swam silently towards the boat. "Ow!" screamed Lexor. "Something bit my foot! And look, we sprung a leak! Sindar, quickly plug it up!" Sindar lurched towards Lexor, tripped clumsily, and overturned the boat. As the 2 Darkling Lords thrashed around in the water, the nymphs watched them, giggling. At least they're cleaner now," laughed Melody, their leader. "Come, sisters, time to hide the unicorns." Lexor and Sindar finally dragged themselves to the shore and lay panting on the sand. "Wood nymphs," cursed Lexor. "I'll make them pay." "It could be worse," Sindar said, cheerfully, shaking water from his helmet. "We could be hunting dragons." Meanwhile, Arzon and Witterquick were wandering through what had once been a forest. All that was left of it now were the blackened stumps of trees. "Merklin said the dragon Gresgamar lives here," said Arzon, looking round. "But I see no sign of it." "Keep looking," replied Witterquick. "A 400-foot-long fire-breathing monster shouldn't be too difficult to find." "It's too bad we have to do this," said Arzon regretfully. "Dragons are proud and wonderful creatures." "Try telling that to a peasant who's just had his village burned to the ground," retorted Witterquick. "Yes, but I hate to think we're going to slay one just to make medicine," sighed Arzon. "Look, it's us or him, Arzon," snapped Witterquick. "Hey, I think I just found some dragon tracks." "Oh, yes?" said Arzon, rather nervously. "It looks like a big one, doesn't it?" "Don't be nervous," laughed Witterquick. "With any luck, we'll sneak up on him before—" He stopped, frozen to the spot, as a huge shadow fell across the 2 Spectral Knights. Then a fearsome, earth-shaking roar split the air. Looking up, they saw a monstrous dragon flying towards them. As the 2 knights turned to run, Witterquick tripped over a tree root and fell heavily to the ground. The dragon dived at the helpless knight. Back on the island of the unicorns, Sindar and Lexor had found fresh unicorn tracks. They followed them, and, parting the undergrowth, saw a unicorn grazing quietly in the clearing ahead. "This is going to be easy," whispered Lexor. "Turn loose your power of destruction, Sindar. Then all we'll have to do is to pick up the pieces." "I don't know, Lexor," sighed Sindar. "It's so pretty, and just for some horn." "Listen, birdbrain," snarled Lexor. "We're all going to die if we don't get that unicorn horn." "Well, all right," sighed Sindar, reluctantly raising his power staff. "By nature's hand, by crafts, by art." The wood nymphs, seeing the danger, rushed at the unicorn, shouting, and succeeded in frightening it away. The clearing was empty by the time Sindar had finished. "What once was one, now fly apart." There was a series of terrible roars as the monster of destruction appeared. It towered above them, looking round for something to destroy. Seeing nothing, it fixed its terrible gaze on the 2 Darkling Lords. "Look out!" screamed Sindar. "It can't find anything to destroy. It'll turn on us. Do something, Lexor." "The arrows turn, the swords repel, may nothing pierce this mortal shell," gabbled Lexor in panic. Just in time, his impenetrable shield sprang up, blocking the power of destruction. The wood nymphs peered through the trees and giggled at the 2 Darkling Lords. Lexor and Sindar could do nothing but cower behind the shield and wait for the monster to shrink and vanish. "Just wait till I get my hands on those wood nymphs," cursed Lexor. "They've made us waste the magic of our power staffs. I'll teach them to mock a Darkling Lord." The power of destruction slowly faded, and Lexor set off in pursuit of the nymphs. Just as he reached out to grab one, she swerved aside, and he hurtled headlong into a deep, muddy pool. The wood nymphs pranced round the edge of the water, giggling and pointing. Even Sindar could do nothing but rock with helpless laughter at the sight of Lexor floundering helplessly in the water. Witterquick slowly raised his head and looked around. There was no sign of the dragon Gresgamar, although he could hear roars of rage in the distance. Then Arzon was at his side. "What happened?" asked Witterquick groggily. "I managed to attract the dragon's attention just before he got you," explained Arzon. "He chased me, and I managed to lure him into a swamp. He'll be stuck there for a while." "But we're no nearer getting a dragon's claw," said Witterquick, getting to his feet. "You'd better consult the bearer of knowledge." "A whim, a thought, and more is sought. Awake my mind, thy will be wrought," chanted Arzon, raising his power staff. Then he gasped in horror when nothing happened. It must be the plague. Witterquick, I have the plague," choked Arzon, sinking to his knees. "What bad timing. It looks as if our quest will fail." At that moment, the dragon appeared over the hill, and seeing them, it roared loudly. "Fly, Arzon, fly!" cried Witterquick. "It's no good." "I can't summon my totem," gasped Arzon weakly. "Then we stand together," promised Witterquick. The two knights stood side by side and prepared for the dragon's attack. They raised their weapons and waited. Suddenly, they heard an even louder roar and were amazed to see a second dragon appear. It was just as big as Gresgamar, but as black as coal. The two dragons roared ferociously and then flew towards each other, breathing fire and slashing with their claws. The two Spectral Knights leapt about, trying to dodge the streams of fire and swinging tails as the dragons battled across the sky. "Hold on, Arzon!" shouted Witterquick. "I'll carry you out of danger." Then he began to chant. "Sheath these feet in the driving gale, make swift these legs, o'er land I sail." Witterquick slung Arzon over his shoulder and ran like a lightning flash, out of range of the dragon's fiery breath. Putting Arzon down, he paused to rest. "With any luck, they'll destroy each other," he panted, and we can get a claw from their remains." "It seems such a waste that they must perish to help us," said Arzon regretfully. "Arzon, if you can be a meal, they could be medicine," laughed Witterquick. The dragons had done terrible damage to each other. Blood was streaming from them, and their sides were covered in scorching burns. They were both screaming with pain and rage. "I think we may have a winner," observed Witterquick, watching Gresgamar sinking towards the ground, groaning in agony. "It'll be over in a minute." "Poor Gresgamar," sighed Arzon. "Let me remind you, friend, that you were almost eaten by him," said Witterquick. Then he sprang to his feet, cursing with rage. The black dragon had flown away, licking its wounds. Gresgamar, though badly hurt, was still alive and landed a short distance from the two Spectral Knights. "Gresgamar is wounded," shouted Arzon. "We must help him." "Help him?" cried Witterquick. "You must be crazy." Arzon took no notice and walked cautiously toward Gresgamar. The huge beast growled at him. "Easy, Gresgamar," murmured Arzon. "I come in peace this time. I know you understand me. We hunted you because a plague is sweeping the land. We need a dragon's claw to save our friends. But you are too gallant a fighter for us to slay you. We offer our respect and admiration. You're hurt. Let me bind your wounds." Arzon cleaned the wounds and produced a jar of soothing ointment, which he spread on the dragon's worst burns. A few minutes later, the dragon lurched to its feet, spread its wings, and took off. "Well, there goes our last chance," groaned Witterquick, watching him fly away. "It was worth the sacrifice to save such a magnificent beast," replied Arzon. "Tell that to Leoric and the others," retorted Witterquick. Meanwhile, Lexor was drying off. He was still angry, however, because he had just realized that their food was in the boat, which was now at the bottom of the sea. Sindar had soon become bored with Lexor's constant grumbling and wandered off by himself to see if he could find anything to eat. Rounding a corner, he found himself face to face with a baby unicorn. "Don't be scared," whispered Sindar, enchanted by the tiny creature. "Everything's fine. No one will hurt you. We're supposed to get a unicorn horn, little fellow, but yours is too small for Merklin to use. Now you'd better go and find your mother. Just stay out of Lexor's way." The wood nymphs had been watching Sindar. As the baby unicorn trotted off, they came forward and spoke to him. "If you are a unicorn hunter, why were you kind enough to let that one go?" asked Melody. "Our friends are very ill with a plague," explained Sindar. "We need a unicorn's horn to save them." "A plague? Do they need help?" asked the wood nymphs. "I apologize. We thought you were here for cruel and evil purposes," said Melody. "When the oldest and the wisest of the unicorns died, I made a flute from his horn. If it will help you, take it. But then you must leave our island at once." Lexor was pacing up and down, furious that Sindar had been away so long. When his friend came into sight, he exploded with rage. "Where have you been, you stupid idiot?" he yelled. "Why have you been so long? Did you find any food?" "Food?" asked Sindar. "I'm sorry. I forgot all about it. I was too busy freeing a baby unicorn." Lexor turned purple with rage. "You mean you caught a unicorn and let it go?" he screamed. "You fool! You're impossible! I can't believe your stupidity! And what's that you're carrying?" "Just a flute," replied Sindar. Lexor looked as if he would explode. Then Sindar held it out for him to inspect. "Perhaps this might be a good time to tell you that it's made out of a unicorn horn," Sindar laughed. "Cheer up, Lexor. We've found what we came here to get." Lexor's mouth hung open in amazement. "Did you say this is made out of unicorn horn?" he asked, looking closely at the flute. "Yes," replied Sindar. "The wood nymphs gave it to me when I freed the baby unicorn." "Sindar," laughed Lexor, "there are times when I really hate you." Witterquick was worried. He and Arzan were stuck in the middle of nowhere. His companion was getting weaker all the time, and they were no nearer finding the dragon's claw they sought. He really did not know what he should do next. "Are you feeling any better, Arzan?" he asked. "No," groaned Arzan, starting to cough. "If you hadn't been so noble and helped to cure that dragon," Witterquick said, gruffly, "we'd have our dragon's claw by now. Then we could go back to Iron Mountain, and Merklin could cure you. What are we going to do now?" Suddenly, he heard a strange rushing sound, as if a gale had sprung up. He looked round to find the source of the noise, and, to his horror, saw Gresgamar hovering above his head. The gigantic dragon reached down with a huge foot and seized Witterquick round the waist. A few seconds later, the beast grabbed Arzan in his other foot. Then the dragon started to climb into the sky, carrying the two Spectral Knights with him. "Let me go!" shouted Witterquick, wriggling like a fish on a hook. But the dragon took no notice. "Turn me loose!" called Arzan weakly, but the dragon flew on unconcerned. "See how noble your beast is!" shouted Witterquick to his companion. "He's got no gratitude at all." I can't believe it," yelled Arzan. "I was so sure I was doing the right thing." He pointed towards the ground. "Wait!" he shouted in excitement. "Look down there. Do you see what I see?" Witterquick struggled round in the dragon's grip until he could see the ground. "It's a dragon's claw!" he cried. "One must have been torn off in the fight. Gresgamar is helping us after all." The dragon wheeled over the claw and then started to descend. It landed and released the two Spectral Knights. They went to the claw and looked in despair at its enormous bulk. It must have fallen from the sky, and the point was buried deep in the ground. "Oh, we'll never shift that," groaned Witterquick. "It's nearly as big as the capture chariot." "We've got to try," said Arzan. The two knights pushed and strained at the claw, but were unable to move it. "Oh, it's no use," panted Witterquick. We can't budge it." "No," puffed Arzan. "The plague saps my strength." At that moment, Gresgamar, who had been watching their pathetic efforts, decided to help. It gripped the claw with one of its powerful feet and plucked it from the ground with no more difficulty than Arzan would have had picking a daisy. Gresgamar offered the claw to the two knights. "We have it!" laughed Arzan. "Now all we've got to do is carry it to Iron Mountain. You'd better summon your power of speed, then go and get Merklin's help." "Easier said than done," groaned Witterquick. "I used my power to save you when the dragons were fighting." "Well," replied Arzan, "that just leaves one other course of action." "You mean—" Witterquick's voice tailed off. "Exactly," laughed Arzan. "We'll have to hitch a lift with Gresgamar." On Iron Mountain, Lexor and Sindar were waiting impatiently for the return of the Spectral Knights. While they paced about some distance from Merklin, they talked. Lexor's evil brain was already starting to hatch a plot. "You know, Sindar," he whispered hoarsely, "there's really no reason for us to share the cure with the Spectral Knights, is there?" "No, Lexor," sneered Sindar sarcastically. "Nothing except the fact that we promised to help them." "Promises can be broken, my muscular friend," urged Lexor fiercely. "When they show up, slay them, and we'll take the dragon's claw."
Visionaries, knights of the magical light. Visionaries, magical powers they fight. Power of blindness and skill and speed. Our life the greatest story. Visionaries, knights of the magical light. Visionaries, knights of the magical light.
Before Sindar could give his opinion of this treacherous plan, Merklin rushed to the window. "Ah, they are here," he called in satisfaction, "and riding on a dragon's back." "A dragon?" gasped Lexor. "I think that'll put an end to your little plan," chuckled Sindar, laughing at Lexor's pale face. Gresgamar banked towards Merklin's sanctuary and landed gently in the courtyard. He released the two Spectral Knights and dropped the claw. "Thank you, Gresgamar, old friend," said Arzan weakly. Gresgamar gave a friendly roar, sending a sheet of flame towards the two Darkling Lords, who hurriedly retreated. Then it spread its wings and launched itself back into the sky. "Greetings, Merklin," croaked Arzan weakly. "Here is the dragon's claw we promised to find." "Thank you, Arzan," replied Merklin. "But I see you're not well." I have the plague, Merklin," Arzan stammered, swaying on his feet. "The plague?" shouted Lexor in panic. "Get rid of him!" Witterquick snarled in rage and prepared to launch himself at his enemy. Merklin stepped between them, furious. "There is no time to be lost in petty squabbles," he shouted. "We must prepare the spell." "Enough of this, Lexor," said Sindar. "We can fight later. What is important now is to stop the plague." He turned to the Spectral Knights. "We have the unicorn's horn," he told them. "We will help you to carry the dragon's claw so that Merklin can cast his spell. Hurry! There is no time to lose." Merklin ordered them to place the claw and the horn in a pool at the side of the courtyard. Then, waving them back, he began to chant the spell. "4 set out, and 4 returned. With treasures they have duly earned. For common sense and uncommon zeal, by all my power, I command thee, heal!" "There, it's finished," he said, turning to the others. "We stopped the plague just in time." "You mean Darkstorm and Mortred? Even Leoric and the others will recover?" asked Sindar. "Yes," replied Merklin. "They will all survive." Back at their fortress in New Valaric, the Spectral Knights were gathered round a table, celebrating the end of the plague. Amid the laughter and joy, Kryatek looked puzzled. "And you just let those 2 Darkling Lords go?" he asked, disbelievingly. "Yes," replied Arzan. "We let them go with respect and thanks. They fulfilled their part of the bargain." "Exactly," added Witterquick. "This adventure has taught me that sometimes a little kindness can have unexpected results." It's good to know that honor can exist among the darkest of hearts, cried Leoric, springing to his feet. Now, Spectral Knights, a toast to the brave heroes of the quest, Witterquick and Arzon, Lexor and Sindar. A loud shout of approval echoed through the hall. To the heroes of the quest.
Visionaries, knights of the magical light.
Visionaries.
Visionaries, knights of the magical light. Visionaries, with magical powers they fight. Powers of light.
Trial of the Wizard.
Visionaries, knights of the magical light.
The mist swirled round Iron Mountain, hiding the magical fortress which stood on its majestic summit. The Spectral Knights, summoned there by the wizard Merklin, waited tensely to be told the purpose of their mission. Thanks to the evil work of the Darkling Lords, said Merklin, 3 dangerous wizards have escaped from the wizard's jail. I want you to track them down. But that's unfair, complained Ferrell. The Darkling Lords caused the problem. They should clean it up. I can't trust the Darkling Lords to clean up this problem. In any case, Merklin added cunningly, I'll give you as much gold as you want to track the wizards down. Gold? We don't want gold, protested Arzon. We're Spectral Knights. Gold is for the greedy and— Silence! Shouted Merklin, glowering at Arzon. If you do as I ask, you gain gold, which you can use to improve the defenses of New Valaric. If you don't— All right, Merklin, muttered Leoric. We agree. Merklin conjured up images of the 3 wizards. They were the treacherous Falcomer, one of Merklin's oldest enemies, the lying Weezer Squeezer, a magician cursed never to tell the truth, and the mysterious Borgavus, about whom little was known. You must stop them before they reach the lost shrine which lies somewhere in the Anarchy Zone, ordered Merklin. If they succeed in reaching the lost shrine, they can use its power to plunge Prismos into evil and destruction. The following day, the Spectral Knights searched for information about the wizards in one of the ruined cities of Prismos. It took many hours of questioning and many gold coins to discover the clues they sought. Eventually, they learned that one wizard had been arrested for selling magic potions. Another had bought some kind of a monk disguise. The third was headed towards Mount Bellicost, with some hired slaves and a supply of deadly magic dust. Leoric decided that the best plan would be to divide into 3 groups and look for the wizards separately. Arzon and Kryatek soon found themselves in the Anarchy Zone. Here the people lived in a state of lawlessness and violence. They searched through the streets, stepping round the rubbish and the fighting, until they came to a filthy inn. Attracted by the noise, they went inside. They saw one of the wizards they were hunting surrounded by townspeople who were throwing food at him. Have some dinner, wizard! Bullseye, try some of this! The anarchs mocked. The wizard cowered on the floor, trying to escape the unwelcome shower. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the knights. Curse it! The Spectral Knights, he muttered. I must think of a plan to escape from them. Weezer Squeezer, for it was he, quickly shouted to the crowd, Spare me, and I will tell you about the lost Illyrian gold shipment. Immediately, the anarchs stopped hurling food and began to mutter with excitement. Lost Illyrian gold shipment? What was that? Gold? Gold? Let's listen to what he has to say. It will make you all rich, shouted Weezer Squeezer, desperately. The shiniest gold I ever saw, and it's all yours, if you save me from these 2. He pointed to the 2 Spectral Knights. The crowd began to move threateningly toward Arzon and Kryatek, shouting, Stop those drifters! String 'em up! Get 'em! Don't let 'em take him! One wrong move, and you'll have every yokel in the zone after you, sneered Weezer Squeezer. Now let me go! Quick as a flash, Kryatek changed into his bear form. The terrified citizens cowered back from the creature, then took to their heels and fled. That ought to keep 'em away long enough for me to get us out of here, chuckled Arzon. Then he and Kryatek led Weezer Squeezer away. In a temple, a choir of monks was chanting. Witterquick and Ektar were crawling towards the distant altar on their hands and knees. In a few minutes, whispered Ektar,
the second sun will rise, and they'll all turn east to pray. Then we'll run around behind them."
Meanwhile, Bogavus, who had been searching the temple for the scroll which would tell him the location of the lost shrine, had reached the library.
"Ah, this is it,"
muttered Bogavus in triumph, seizing a scroll from the shelves. Carrying his prize, he turned to leave.
"What do you suppose the brothers would do if they discovered a thief was in their midst, Bogavus?"
asked Ektar, moving behind him. The wizard jumped with surprise, then collected his thoughts.
"I dread to think,"
shuddered Bogavus.
"Then come quietly,"
said Ektar through gritted teeth, seizing the wizard's arm.
"and hurry. This place gives me the creeps,"
added Witterquick. In yet another part of Prismos, a band of slaves was toiling up a steep road, lashed on by a whip held by the treacherous Falcomer, when, "I am Leoric of New Valaric. I hereby free your slaves," shouted Leoric, leaping into the road in front of them. As the slaves fled, scarcely believing their luck, Falcomer hurled a cloud of magic dust at Leoric and Ferrell. A gigantic snake appeared from nowhere and began to rear up over the two Spectral Knights, spitting fiery venom. Even as the two heroes jumped backwards, the snake began to shrink, and then collapsed onto the road, leaving nothing but a heap of dust, which blew away in the wind.
"Curses!" shouted Falcomer. "My magic dust must be damp."
A short time later, the 6 Spectral Knights met, with their prisoners safely captured. "Well, that was easy enough," said Arzan with satisfaction, as the knights prepared to load their prisoners aboard the capture chariot.
"What's wrong with this machine?"
asked Ferrell, struggling to start the engine.
"Look out! Ambush!"
shouted Cryotek. "Take cover!" yelled Leoric, as the dagger assault vehicle roared overhead, its laser cannons spitting fire. The knights dived behind some rocks.
"3 suns aligned, pour forth their light, and fill the archer's show with might,"
chanted Cryotek, raising his power staff. But as the giant archer filled the sky, fireballs and laser fire split the air.
"Oh, it's no good,"
gasped Leoric. "They've got us pinned down."
"Well, let's release one of the wizards as a diversion," suggested Ektar.
"All right, we'll set Weezer Squeezer free," decided Leoric, turning to the wizard. "Well, run for it. You might just make it."
"You must be joking," said Weezer Squeezer, his teeth chattering with fear. "It's dangerous out there."
"It's more dangerous here," shouted Cryotek, giving him a hard push.
"Lexor!"
bellowed Darkstorm. "One of the wizards has escaped. Stop him. He may be able to tell us the secret of the lost shrine." "I've got my hands full with the Spectral Knights," grunted Lexor in reply. As the battle continued, some of the Darkling Lords began to lose their nerve. Lexor raised his power staff. "The arrows turn. The swords rebel. May nothing pierce this mortal shell," he shrieked in panic. His invulnerable shell sprang up to protect the Darkling Lords, but with unexpected results. "You fool! Your shield is weighing us down!" cried Darkstorm, livid with rage as the dagger assault vehicle sagged towards the ground. "The wizard must not be allowed to get away!" While the Darkling Lords wrestled with their tumbling craft, the Spectral Knights made a run for it. As they ran, Leoric panted out instructions.
"Witterquick," he ordered, "inform Merklin that we have captured the wizards and would like immediate transport to his sanctuary."
"Sheathe these feet in the driving gale. Make swift these legs, o'er land I sail,"
chanted Witterquick, then flashed off on his mission in a blur of light. A few minutes later, a gigantic hand appeared out of nowhere and dropped towards the ground. "If I am not mistaken, this is our transport," cried Cryotek, jumping aboard, followed by the others.
"It beats having to hike all the way up the mountain,"
said Ektar, as the hand sailed away to Iron Mountain, carrying the Spectral Knights with it.
"How could we have been so stupid as to let the Spectral Knights escape?"
roared Kravex, watching their enemies disappearing into the distance.
"We could have got rid of them once and for all, and instead we wind up with this loser."
"I am indeed a loser," groaned Weezer Squeezer miserably.
"One moment," interrupted Lexor. "I believe I have heard of this wizard. He is the one who always lies."
"That's a lie," protested Weezer Squeezer.
"Do you know where the lost shrine is?" asked Darkstorm.
"Of course not," replied Weezer Squeezer.
"Then where isn't it?" asked Darkstorm cunningly.
"It isn't to the west of here," replied Weezer Squeezer.
"Aha! We head west," crowed Darkstorm. "The Spectral Knights may have escaped, but we can still be first to the lost shrine."
The giant hand tipped the Spectral Knights onto the floor at Merklin's feet. They stood up slowly.
"The takeoff was fine, but the landing could have been better," grimaced Kryatek.
"Please accept my apologies. This hand is not yet fully trained," said Merklin. Then he turned to the two wizards. "I will now decide your punishments," he announced. "Falcomer, do you have anything to say in your defense?" he asked, fixing Falcomer with a cold gaze. "No," replied Falcomer, bowing his head. "Then I banish you to the wizard's jail," cried Merklin, waving his arms. The giant hand scooped up Falcomer and whisked him away. "Now for Bogavis," said Merklin.
"Please, do not send me to the wizard's jail," begged Bogavis nervously. "You know I am not to be feared. I am only a minor player in this game of wizardry."
"But you are a player," Merklin reminded him.
"No, I'm not," protested Bogavis. "I know no real magic, only illusion."
"Allow me to test your magical powers," suggested Merklin. "But I warn you, if you lie to me on this test, you will burst into flames and be destroyed. Will you take the test?"
"Yes,"
agreed Bogavis. "Mages of the Mist, clear his name, or let his body erupt in flame," chanted Merklin slowly.
When nothing happened, Bogavis smiled. The Spectral Knights, who had grown to like him, cheered their approval.
"Very well. The test proves you have no magical powers," admitted Merklin. "Now lose yourself before I decide to test you for fraud."
"Oh, thank you, Merklin. You've been very fair,"
said Bogavis gratefully, walking to the door.
"Now,"
roared Merklin angrily, turning to the knights.
"You returned too early. Your mission is not finished. The wizard Weezer Squeezer is still on the loose. Bring him to me. My magic reveals that he is near the old zoo."
Meanwhile, the Darkling Lords were stumbling about, but they had found no sign of the lost shrine. "Are we near the shrine?" asked Lexor.
"No, far away,"
replied Weezer Squeezer. "Is it in a mountain?" asked Lexor.
"Why, yes, in a tall mountain,"
answered Weezer Squeezer. "But there are no mountains around here," remarked Sindar. "That's the point, Sindar," snapped Lexor irritably. "He always lies. The lost shrine isn't in a mountain at all." "Of course," cried Darkstorm. "It's underground. That's why it has never been found."
"Oh, Darkstorm," flattered Mordred. "As usual, your powerful intelligence has solved a mystery that has plagued everyone else."
The Darkling Lords stopped outside a ruined building. "This looks like it was once a zoo," remarked Darkstorm as they entered. "I get a bad feeling from this foul place," muttered Cravex.
"I don't see why," scoffed Recon. "It's only a few empty cages."
"Animal escape! Animal escape! Alert park wardens at once! Set traps! Animal escape!" bellowed a loudspeaker. "We seem to have awakened a long-dead security system," shouted Darkstorm. From all sides, a host of rusty robot zookeepers were racing down on the Darkling Lords, waving nets. "These things are coming from everywhere," shouted Lexor, frantically fighting off the machines.
"They are attracted by your mystical personalities," laughed Weezer Squeezer as he raced away. "They think you are animals."
"Defend yourselves!" shouted Darkstorm, changing into his mollusk form. The Spectral Knights had no sooner reached the zoo than they heard the sounds of fighting. "Down that stairway!" cried Leoric. Reaching the bottom of the staircase, they saw the Darkling Lords being rounded up by a crowd of robot keepers. "It appears that the Darkling Lords have run into a spot of trouble," laughed Leoric as they approached the netted Darkling Lords.
"Where's Weezer Squeezer?" asked Cryotek. He has escaped us. He's working his way to the lost shrine," panted Cravex.
"Where is that?" asked Leoric.
"Why should I tell you?" snarled Cravex, wriggling in his net like a fish.
"None of us gain if the wizard takes power," replied Leoric. "He went that way," said Lexor reluctantly, pointing through the mesh. "All right, we have to make a dash for it," ordered Leoric. "If he gets to the lost shrine, this world will grow dark and evil."
"How are we going to get past those keepers?" asked Arzon, pointing.
"Whispered secrets of a shattered age, I summon you, renew this sage," chanted Leoric. "What do you want of me?" demanded the Wisdom Owl. "I am about to be captured," explained Leoric quickly. "What do I do?" "Resist all temptation to do what you would do," replied the Wisdom Owl mysteriously.
"What can that mean?" muttered Leoric. Then suddenly he understood.
"Hold on. I would normally change into a lion. If I did, I would be captured. We will not be caged if we keep our human forms."
"The shrine, at last," crowed Weezer Squeezer, "and Merklin shall grovel at my feet."
"I think not, Weezer Squeezer," shouted Leoric, smashing the altar with one mighty blow.
"Obra, you destroyed it," cried Weezer Squeezer in a fury.
"Yes, and with it the magic of this lost shrine," said Leoric. There was a loud bang, and they were all magically transported back to Iron Mountain. Once more they found themselves standing in front of Merklin.
"For your crimes, Weezer Squeezer, you will be locked in the wizard's jail for eternity," pronounced Merklin, conjuring the wizard away.
"Please accept my apologies, Merklin," groveled Darkstorm, struggling free of the net.
"You need not apologize. I know you are evil, and will deceive anyone at the first opportunity," replied Merklin.
"Oh, yes," said Darkstorm uneasily. "But may we have our power staffs recharged?"
"Of course," replied Merklin.
The lords dipped their power staffs in the pool.
"Now get out. I may understand you, but I don't choose to talk to you any longer," said Merklin.
Then turned to the Spectral Knights.
"And now it is time to reward you with the gold."
"No, Merklin," replied Leoric. "I think we can earn our own gold. We need not be paid. We have benefited from our deeds, and that is enough." "You know, I still wonder about old Bogavis," mused Arzon.
"Yes, as I have myself," agreed Merklin thoughtfully. "If he was powerful enough to escape my detection, that would make him a dangerous wizard indeed."
Visionaries, knights of the magical light.